So the nature of the Arabic language is that it's a precise language. It has absolute precision. Now another very interesting thing about language is that if you look at some of the dominant theories of language, almost all of the Western theories, if you move outside of the religious realm, almost all of the non-religious linguistic theories state that the phoneme is a meaningless symbol. The phoneme is something like a, I, u. These are phonemes. And we have in language an extraordinary thing that they call doubling. Now, one of the things about language is, a lot of people don't know this, but there's only about 100 sounds that the human being can make. A trained voice can make more, but most human beings can only make about 100 sounds. The average language has about 45 sounds in it. Most animals can only make a handful of sounds. In fact, one of the most sophisticated of all the creatures in terms of sound are the birds, which is interesting because Allah talks about mantaq at-tayr. That is most adept to linguistic prowess is the bird, not the monkey. The monkey is actually incredibly limited. So this idea of doubling is that we can actually take phonemes and add them together to create sounds based on more than one phoneme. And so if you look at like animals, like a dog barks, yambah. But you don't notice that if you listen to a dog's bark, he's not doing this doubling. No other creature can do this. They can't do this. So a dog can make these crude sounds, but he can't make subtle sounds. He can't say, hello, how are you? He can't say, kayfa haluka. He can just bark. That's all he can do. The human being can do this doubling, which gives him a power, because it means that instead of having 100 sounds, which would mean the maximum number of meanings that you could have in your language is 100. The average animal, they've got about 7 or 8. Some of the most sophisticated monkeys have about 25. In other words, that's all they can say. Look out. Something like that. They can say, watch out. Or hawk. Right? They can shout something that has a meaning to the other animals and they'll run. And we know this in observing and watching them. But human beings have the ability to produce language. Now Allah has chosen the Arabic language, and my belief is that it is in accordance with the opinion of Imam Suyuti and others, that the Arabic language is tawqifiyya, which means that it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The language is not conventional. It didn't come together out of like the ding-dong theory. That's a linguistic theory. They call it the ding-dong theory. So for instance, they said one day somebody dropped something, like you take two, and they make that sound, they say clank. That sounds like a clank. You see, that's a ding-dong theory of language. Is that originally human beings, like a rock dropped and it went koom, and they said rock. Right? This is how stupid these people get, right? But this is actually a theory in linguistics. Now, they don't believe the phoneme has meaning. They say the phoneme is meaningless, but when you add it to other things, it becomes meaningful. The Quran rejects this, and this is one of the most fascinating things to me about the Quran, is that it begins with letters. And every mufassir who has ever existed and written on the Quran always will say, Alif Lam Mim, Allahu A'lam bi ma'naha, or Allahu A'lam bi muradi. Allah knows what that means. In other words, meaning goes all the way down to the letter itself. There's no other explanation for that. You can't say Alif Lam Mim is meaningless, because that's saying that there's something in the Quran that doesn't have meaning. And yet, these people with their dominant linguistic theories believe that the phoneme is meaningless. What does that mean in terms of Arabic language? Well, for instance, you can look at a word in the Arabic language and understand something of its meaning because of the letters. Like for instance, Ibn Faris and Ibn Jinni, some of our great linguists, and we had linguistics before these people ever knew there was a word or a science. We had linguistics 1,000 years before they were even thinking about these things. In fact, phonetics is a 19th century phenomenon, and our tajweed science preserved the sounds of the Arabic language the points of articulation. This is what they're called now in modern phonetics, the points of articulation. We had makharij al-huruf over 1,000 years ago. This is the ilham from God. The greatest proof of the truth of Islam is the preservation of the Arabic language, in that the meanings of Quran are absolutely preserved. The Jewish people didn't work out until a Farsi Jew, a Jew from Morocco, in the 9th century, worked out that Hebrew was based on triliteral roots. They didn't even know that 1,000 years, 2,000 years ago. The Bible is over 2,500 years, the Torah, and they didn't even know their words were built on triliteral stems until the Arabs pointed it out to them. The Jews didn't even make a dictionary to preserve the meanings of the Torah until the Arabs, all of a sudden they start seeing the Arabs making dictionaries, and they said, we should have done that a couple thousand years ago. I'm not making this up, really. They made that, and that's why the Jewish people, when they study the meanings of the Semitic roots of their language, they have to go back to the Arabic dictionaries. This is a well-known fact. They have to go back and look at the triliteral roots of the Arabs and how they explain them. So you take a word, for instance, like nafasa. Nafasa is based on a root which is na and fa. And then the third letter, which is what's known as the lam letter, it changes as the root changes to give it different meanings. And it's based on the attributes of the letter. So you have nafasa, is to breathe. And then you have nafatha, which is to blow lightly. And then you have nafaha, which is like a nafahat, which are like a wind. So you get the ha sound, which is in riyah. Riyah. You can hear the wind in it. Ha. This is not the ding-dong theory. This is because it's a divine language. And then you have nafakha. Harf isti'la. It's a strong letter, and it becomes kha, to blow with force. So you have nafasa, nafatha, nafaha, and nafakha. And you'll find this throughout the Arabic language. It's very sophisticated in the way that Allah has designed it. Now the words that make up the actual letters of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name, look at these letters. Alif, lam, lam, ha. Allah. Allah. It begins with a hamza, which is at the deepest articulation of the throat. And this is where the name of Allah is emanating from the point in which human vocalization is possible. It's coming from the depths of the vocal tract. And you say Allah, and it goes back to the ha, which is at the deepest of these are called huruf al-halq. The ha and hamza, right? That's in aqsa al-halq. And so it begins in the aqsa al-halq, in the depths of the throat, and it returns to the depths of the throat. But in the midst of it, you have a letter which is in the jawf, or the lisan. Allah. Allah. And this is something incredible, because one of the things in the Greek language, lulen is a Greek word, and it means to soothe or comfort, because it's been recognized throughout history that the la sound is a soothing and comforting sound for children. And that's where you get lullaby, and you get la la, like this is something mothers will do to their children. La 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 la, like this. Why? Because it's a soothing sound. It actually brings a type of sakina to the heart. And so the name of Allah is something that actually brings a tranquility to the human being when they say it. Allah. In the Taoist tradition, they have what they call the universal meditation, is based on putting the tongue at the roof of the mouth and doing that several times. La, 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 like that. Because they believe that connects all of the meridian channels in the body. They actually do that as a practice. When you say, La ilaha illallah, it's amazing that Allah has made those sounds. Anybody can say those sounds. Look at La ilaha illallah. You have La ilaha illallah. 4 words comprised entirely of 3 letters. Alif, Lam, and Ha. What does Alif, Lam, Ha spell? Ilahun. And what are you saying? La ilaha illallah. There's no ilahun except Allah. And you're doing it with the letters that comprise the name of Allah. This is something incredible. Who thought of this? Do you think a human being worked all of these things out? Do you think the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam worked all these things out? Let's see, what could I make a wording that would use all the letters of this is not possible. You see, this is where you begin to realize this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the fascinating things about La ilaha illallah, look how light it is on the tongue. Anybody can say it. La ilaha illallah. But move to Muhammadun Rasulullah. Suddenly it becomes weighty. You see, Allah makes it easy to say Tawheed, but how to live Tawheed, that's the difficult part. How to live Muhammadun Rasulullah. Now look at the idgham there. Why does Allah have an idgham? There's no idgham in La ilaha illallah. There's no blurring in, right? Each of the things are articulated without idgham. Idgham is assimilation in tajweed, right? Now look at Muhammadun Rasulullah. He's assimilated into Rasulullah because that is who he is. He is Rasulullah. So his name is actually assimilated into the word itself. The noon of his Muhammadun becomes the part of the Ra. Muhammadun Rasulullah. And then even when you do it with the Muhammadun Rasulillah or Muhammadan Rasulullah, it all has idgham. You have to say that, which is amazing. It is amazing, that thing. So this is, Allah has made these secrets in the Arabic